So are we live now, Hayden, or
Uh,
what's going on?
I'm about to go live now. Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
connected, so that was the problem before. So I think it's all good.
Maybe you
So
better tell me the story after if
yes, save it for
all right.
after. So
So you want to lead
all
off with
right,
a really horrible, depressing story for
yeah,
everyone.
all right. I think it's going live now. So
Okay.
everything
This
is
is,
good.
I mean, just reading the summary, it's so depressing, it's horrible.
All right. So we are live, I believe. So in
So
the
are we
chat,
live now, Hayden,
yes,
or what's going on?
can confirm we are. So, guys, today we've got Antony Zegers and Amaury Séchet from Bitcoin ABC, and they're developing the cryptocurrency eCash these days. Previously from Bitcoin Cash, that's where many of you will probably know them from. And so, yeah, it's been like nearly 2 years now since that chain split occurred, and when eCash came into existence. It's pretty crazy to say that because it feels like it wasn't that long ago, but so much time has now passed, and these guys have been pretty busy too in that time. So um, the latest is that they had a conference, and that conference was in Prague for eCash, and I think there was some interesting developments that came out of that. Or this was organized by Tobias Rock, and the main announcement that was made at that event was that Avalanche is now live, or it was planned to go live, and now it's live because we're in the future. But Yeah, so that's pretty big news, and that's something that I know that they've been working on since the Bitcoin Cash days, and it's finally here. So yeah, who wants to start off? Maybe let's. Were you at the conference physically, Amaury, since you were over there in Europe? How
Yes,
how was it?
it was good. It was the first time for me in Prague. It was good meeting some crypto people finally. I haven't been to a conference to meet anyone for more than 2 years now. So yeah, that was definitively good. And I would advise, like, online is good, okay, I guess, but meeting people in person is so much better. So I would, recommend people to do it.
Yeah, that's for me as well. I found that to be one of the best parts of just like being involved in crypto because you can meet everybody there and put faces to names of people online. And yeah, I did see a bunch of photos and a few clips online of this particular event, and it kind of gave me some vibes of like Bitcoin back in the earlier days. It's like going back
Mm.
to how it used to be. Because nowadays you see a lot of these conferences and it's all like big flashy events with like some superstar concert or something like that. But yeah, this felt like a lot more genuine and like you can mingle with
Yeah,
people
and
a lot more directly and things like that.
a lot of the people there, they were in crypto for the reason I got into crypto in the early days. And that was good. Yeah, right now people are like, what shitcoin should I buy to do like 10x or lose all my money? And okay, that's fun, right? But that's more of a casino than anything else. Doesn't solve any real world problem. And it's a bit disappointing, right? Because we see right now that like CDBC are being rolled out. Um, it's actually much faster than I would have expected. You would have me 5 years ago. I would tell you that it's coming, but much later than it is. Right now, it's being rolled out very quickly. So the promise of bitcoins are more important now than ever before, but it seems that everybody forgot, right? Or even some people have not forgot, but are like, oh, the market has proven those theses untrue, and we are not doing something else, digital gold or whatever. And it seems to me that it's very unfortunate, especially since once you need it, it's actually too late, right? Like you cannot buy it anymore because you're locked out of your money.
Exactly. Yeah, I even saw, I think in the last day or so, it was like, oh, the Australian government is looking at putting out a CBDC. And so, yeah, they're all onto it. People need to, well, I think they're in for a great shock when it does finally all roll out.
Yeah, all of them are in China. That's pretty much already rolled out in some places. And we had the news that came out a few days ago, where they are doing like expiring currency, expiring CDBC, right? So you get some money in your account, and if you don't spend it, at some point it got burned away. So that's nice. You cannot save anymore with this kind of system. And also they limit the amount of beef or meat in general that you can buy with
Yeah.
it, which is, this is coming in the West too. This is gonna come around environmental concern, right? Like, oh, you already filled the tank of your car this week. You cannot do it again. You're driving too much. What are you doing? Or whatever this is gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you add that ability to add those controls, that who knows what it will be. It could be, yeah, your carbon footprint is too high, or your something to do with the next pandemic, or whatever.
Yeah, you did not control. You did not get the vaccine anti-COVID, so you cannot buy your plane ticket, or whatever that is.
Well, that's why you guys are building out eCash, right?
Yes.
And so the main question is like, and this is something that I haven't worked out yet, is like, when are people going to realize the importance of this sort of technology and actively like take back all the freedoms and stuff that we are so used to? I'm not certain about when that's going to happen, or even if it will happen, because most people are just.
I think the majority is going to have to lose it. Like we're at a stage where I think the majority is going to have to lose it to understand what they had.
Yeah, they're going to have to get hurt.
The good news is that you don't need to be part of the majority, but this idea that many people crypto have, that you're gonna like conquer the whole world, and therefore those kind of things are not gonna be possible anymore. Maybe it was a bit naive. I think there are alternative timeline in which it could have happened. We had good growth in 2014, 15, and so and if we had continued on the trajectory, crypto would probably be big enough by now so that those stuff are not a concern. But this did not happen. No, I think we're gonna have to lose it.
Yes.
Yeah, like I don't know if you agree, but it seems like it's basically inevitable that these central bank digital currencies will be implemented and rolled out. So like what we have to do is basically just build an alternative. So it's sort of like the lifeboat or ARC scenario or whatever. And then, the quicker and better we can do that, the better.
And it will be ready for everyone when the time comes, right?
I mean, we have to build a whole alternate set of, like a whole alternate economy, basically. So, but yeah, the sooner we get going on that and the quicker we can build it, the better the chances are.
And so, looking to Avalanche now, like, where does that all play into this? So, in my understanding of things, is this technology that was borrowed from the Avalanche of Emin Gunserer? And like, how does it help improve eCash in like its goal to be an electronic cash system?
There's basically, the thing they both basically were created based on the Avalanche white paper that came out in 2018, I believe. So yeah, AVAX, like Emin and his team developed AVAX based on that, but our implementation is a completely separate, like parallel development, but it's based on the same underlying protocol that they based. So they basically just created a whole new project based on that, whereas we implemented the protocol for eCash. So now we basically have two consensus algorithms within one cryptocurrency, which is sort of interesting.
Yeah.
We have Avalanche and Nakamoto consensus.
Yeah, so it hasn't done away with proof of work. It's still got that, but then it's got this other
Mhm.
layer to like further supplement it and improve things. And so, is there any other cryptocurrencies that are doing this sort of thing to your knowledge, or is eCash the first one and the only one at this point in time?
Well, as far as I know, only AVAX and eCash implemented the Avalanche protocol. So, and AVAX doesn't do any proof of work at all. So I think we are the only ones doing what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. It's a first, and I'm surprised that not that many people have been talking about it yet. It's kind of flown under the radar, so hopefully we can bring a bit more attention to this.
Well,
Um,
the Ethereum merge was at the same time, and well,
yeah,
not at the same
yeah.
time. It was the next day, right? Like we
Yeah.
did it, and then there was the Ethereum merge. So, yeah.
Was
It's
that
within
in
it
was
was
that
within
intentional?
24 hours.
Did you guys plan that, or was it just like, oh, it's ready at this point
No,
in time,
no.
and it just so happened to
It
be
was
lining
basically
up?
just happened to be ready basically at that time.
Yeah. Also, one thing that people maybe not realize is that the Ethereum merge was planned for the summer, and so they rescheduled it. So it's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not impossible to manage to do it at the same time, but it would have been quite challenging to do it at the same time if you wanted to, because of that last minute rescheduling.
Yeah. And so it is. So we've got Nakamoto consensus on one side, and now Avalanche is doing post consensus. So can you explain, Amaury, for people watching, what exactly this is doing, that the whole Avalanche side of things, and what is the post consensus?
Yeah, so people are familiar with the fact that there are 51% attack on you know Bitcoin like cryptocurrencies that use Nakamoto consensus, uh, which means that if you have 51% of the miners that want to do something malicious, they can rewrite history and make anything happen effectively. Well, not anything, but a lot of things happen, and that is some bad thing that we know is possible, but there was not really a solution so far to that problem. Especially when you are a minority coin, there is always like, we use the same machine algorithm as Bitcoin, right? But we are a fraction of the value of a Bitcoin. So even if like a couple of Bitcoin miner wanted to rewrite the eCash chain, they could have, right? But because we use the Avalanche consensus, what's happened is that all the nodes, they can tell each other that, hey, there is a new block, there is a new tip of the chain, and I consider that tip to be valid, right? And then they run the Avalanche consensus between themselves to not only to know that there is a new tip that is valid, but they also know that everybody else knows that this is the new block, this is the new tip, and they consider it valid. And as soon as you know that everybody knows that this is the new tip of the chain, you never need to reorg it, because if someone proposes you a block that is a reorg of that block, you are 100% sure that it's an attack and that it's malicious. So
Yeah.
this way, we never have 51% attack on the cache. That's not possible anymore.
Right.
Within maybe 2 seconds or something of a block being found and propagated, the whole network agree, hey, this is the new tip and this is how it is.
And so I know that when the chain split happened with Bitcoin Cash, there were some like malicious miners that were like trying to attack the eCash chain. And so have they been doing that sort of thing recently, or was that just only at the very beginning?
No, it happened then, and we actually used the early prototype because we started working on Avalanche before the split. So we had an early prototype of Avalanche at that time, and we used that to defeat that miner that was attacking the chain. And as a result, they lost a lot of money, and they ended up, they stopped doing it at some point. They got tired of losing money, and that was the end of it.
Okay, well that proves that it works then, right?
Yeah, that's a very strong proof that it works. Yes.
Cool. And yeah, now like obviously eCash, like the hash rate is kind of low in comparison to other coins. So, it's still, this is still something that is needed here. And now that sort of attack is no longer possible. It's just like completely closed off. And the other benefit of doing this, I believe, is as well that like exchanges and things can accept eCash deposits after one confirmation, and it should be like guaranteed 100%
Yeah,
safe, basically.
Yeah, so the thing is, on that front, we need to convince the exchange that this is safe, right? Like, because we're convinced ourselves that it is safe, but those exchanges, they are looking at a bazillion different coins. They are not just looking at us. And so they need to be convinced that this is safe. And this is where maybe the community can help, by if they use an exchange or whatever that don't accept one confirmation. It's a bit more subtle than one confirmation. There is an RPC. Well, maybe it's a bit technical, but you can query the node to see, like, is the block accepted, finalized by Avalanche, right?
Yeah,
and if it is, it cannot be reorged, so you can accept the coin. And that typically happens about 2 seconds after the block is propagated. So when we say you can accept that for one confirmation, it's not quite true, at least in a technical sense. It's like after one confirmation and like 2 seconds, something like that, it's good. But we really need to convince the exchange that that this is safe and that it can be done, and teach them how to do it. I think it's going to provide great value to the eCash ecosystem.
Yeah, like a better way of looking at it. It's not like you just lower the confirmation requirements down, but they now have a new way of asking the node, like, hey, is this transaction finalized? And then the node will say, yep, this one's good. It's finalized by Avalanche.
Yeah.
And right now that just means that it's in a block that was finalized also. So then that it basically, like, the exchanges want to know that the deposits are secure. So, but this is actually like basically a better way of doing that. And as a side bonus, it also will do it within as soon as a block is found, within a few seconds. So that's a great benefit for users too.
Yeah, and well, if it's so secure and like final in that regard, then I can see that people who are doing things like arbitrage or they need to get like funds on the exchange quickly, they might be using eCash then if this is implemented widespread.
This is something that people have been asking us in the BCH ecosystem like forever, because they wanted to do arbitrage across exchange and stuff like that, and so we know that this is important, and like intuitively, because if you deposit money on an exchange, you want it to be fast, and faster is better. But because so many people were bugging us in the BCH days about that, we also know that it's not just us. Like, there's real demand for that.
Yeah, and so what are like the best options as far as cryptocurrencies go right now that you would be like competing against? I think from what I've seen, coins like Ethereum, the exchanges seem to accept deposits fairly quickly with that. But who would you be competing against, I guess, with this sort of thing?
So, well, if you talk about Ethereum, it's a bit difficult. I'm not quite sure what the characteristic of their new system is going to be like. They basically overhauled everything not so long ago. So, like a couple of weeks ago. So it's a bit difficult to know how it's going to go on the long term. Historically, Ethereum had a lot of trouble to scale. And I think those problems are going to remain, because they are not due to the consensus algorithm that they were using. They are due to the EVM for the most part. So I don't know if they can do a lot about that. Maybe they can do something. I don't know. It doesn't seem like, it seems like there are genuinely hard technical problems in there. So the problem is, with a currency like Ethereum, is that a lot of the time you're going to be able to transfer fairly quickly, but sometimes you're not, right? Unless you pay stupidly high fees. And this is not something that you want for arbitrage, because typically when there are good arbitrage opportunities, is time where some event happened on the market, everybody's moving money around based on that event, and if you can move money faster than other people, then you're good, right? You can take advantage of the arbitrage opportunity, which is unlikely to be possible with Ethereum, because in those times the chain is probably going to be pretty saturated.
Right, and yeah, obviously that's one of the main benefits of eCash, is that the fees are low still. So, you know, yeah, when you're doing arbitrage, there's those low margins generally, and you can't afford to be spending a few dollars on fees. So, yeah, it could be something that's really attractive to people when implemented, I think.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, like, right now it's one block, but if you use this way of, if the exchanges start using this method, then once we implement pre-consensus in the future, then that will essentially automatically speed it up to be, you know, even faster. So this is like a major improvement right now, but it's also, you know, we want to make it even better in the future.
And so, where does staking come into this? Because that's something that I read about briefly. There is some sort of staking with Avalanche here.
Yeah, so we use, I don't know, I generally stay away from the whole proof of stake terminology, because when you use that, people expect that this is not a Nakamoto consensus, but you use stake instead of proof of work, and they come with a lot of baggage there, and that's not what it is. And so I'm always like a bit reticent to use it. So, but the Avalanche algorithm need to know that, you know, the nodes that participate are legit, right? And because otherwise, like, if you don't do that, someone can spin out 1,000 node and pretend that there are 1,000 different people, and overwhelm the network, right? And like take over the network effectively. So you want to prevent that. So how do you prevent that? Well, each node that's gonna participate in the Avalanche protocol is gonna have to prove that they hold a certain amount of eCash, so that you cannot spin a bazillion of them. Or if you spin like 1,000 of them, you need to spend 1,000, like you need to hold 1,000 times more eCash to be able to do that. So that's just a way to prevent this, called a Sibyl attack. That's a way to prevent a Sibyl attack. But the stake in itself is not used in the consensus algorithm. It's not used to do anything in the consensus algorithm.
Okay, and what's the incentive there for people to do staking?
Well,
I mean, people are already doing it.
Yeah.
Like the network working well. If you are a miner, you want your block to be accepted. If you are an exchange, you want to make sure that those finalization when you accept a deposit are strong and whatnot, right? So people that benefit from the network working well, they can benefit from that, and it doesn't cost anything. It's not like you spend the money to be staking it. You can recover the money anytime you want.
Yeah. So right now there's no direct reward. Like you don't get paid directly to do staking. But as of this morning, I think there's a bit over 80 billion XEC staked right now. So that's like roughly $3 million US dollars. So, and that's spread between, I think, about a dozen or so different like big stakers, and there's a lot of some smaller ones too. So people it's kind of encouraging that there's like a bunch of people that are just, putting their money, kind of tying up their money to stake it, even though there's no direct reward, just to make the network work better.
Yeah. And so how do you actually...
Well, I think it's probably better because the people that are doing it are people who are actually incentivized to have the network work better.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you pay people, one thing that I realized going into this, I became more and more opposed to the idea of a staking reward. And I'm not opposed in the absolute sense, in the sense that, this is something that you should never do, or there is no justification for it. But so far, all the discussion about that have brought up like nothing that has to do anything with improving the quality of the network. Let's put it that way. And therefore, Yeah.
Well, I'm actually in favor of having a staking reward, basically for that reason, because I think like we want to improve the quality of the network. You want people to run high quality nodes, and if they're providing, it's a valuable service that's being provided to the network, so it makes sense to pay
Yeah,
for it.
so that was my reasoning going into it, and it still kind of is, right? Like doing high quality nodes with high uptime and whatever
Mm-hmm.
is gonna cost something. Plus, you immobilize some capital, so it's gonna cost
Mm-hmm.
something. But at the end of the day, if people were like, okay, we provide this, and this value, and maybe we can do this, and that if we have more resources, so maybe, we should reward that so that we can do those kind of stuff, then yeah. But what's going to happen is not this at all, right? And the fact that, this is not what's happening kind of like convinces me that this is not the right direction. It's not incentivizing people to do anything that is good for the network. It's incentivizing people
Well,
to reshoot the network.
the reward should be based on providing this valuable services to the network. So if there's a way to pay people
Yeah.
who do the valuable service, then that would be a good thing to do, I think. Yeah, you don't want to just pay people to sit around.
Yeah, but you'd see that, like in the discussion, you should have an expectation that this is what happens, and this is where you know that this is a door that you can open.
Right.
If the discussion is like, oh, how much can I stake and can I get a reward from it? Well, you don't seem to have any interest in making the network better, so maybe I should not pay you.
Yeah.
Every time someone is doing that, I'm like, yeah, this looks like a worse idea than 5 minutes ago.
So what are you proposing to do? First, you want to rebrand it from staking to something else, and then secondly, what are you going to do?
I never used the term staking, so I don't know if we need to rebrand. Like there is not that much staking in the source code. It's called proofs. Like it's
okay.
a proof that you hold a certain amount. So people are like, oh, this is staking, and in some way it is staking still, but I don't know. I want to be careful with those things. I see like how the whole shitcoin casino works, and I don't intend to send eCash in the direction where it's a shitcoin. So I want to be careful there. Like you always want to be very careful with the behavior that you incentivize. And even though I'm not opposed in the absolute to the staking reward, but the behavior that is incentivized so far don't make me hopeful that it's a good idea. Unless we can find a way to do it, that don't reward those bad behaviors.
Right. So yeah,
it's a technical thing. You need to figure out a way to implement it also. So I agree with Amaury in that sense. Like in my opinion, like if we figure out a good way to implement it that rewards the behaviors we want, then I think that would be probably a good thing. And
you'd expect people to make that money to be able to participate there, but I don't seem to be able to. So
you want people to basically run a bunch of nodes. You can run it's quite an interesting protocol. Like you can from one proof you can run multiple nodes, and it's good for Avalanche to have people running many nodes because it's a very chatty protocol. Like it's a network. It's a protocol that basically assumes that you have good network connection, and you want to be well connected to all these nodes. So it's good to have people running lots of nodes on the Avalanche protocol.
Yeah, Avalanche is very chatty.
So are we live now, Hayden?
Yeah.
That's my analogy for Avalanche. Basically, it's like Avalanche is like talking to people, whereas like Nakamoto consensus is like writing things down. So if you think about that analogy, it's like sometimes it's good to talk and come to decisions quickly by talking. But then for other things, you want to, like if you want a long-term record, you want to write it down. So they're both valuable things to have. They just can serve different uses.
So on the eCash website, this is where I got the staking terminology and everything from. So I don't know, you might want to take a look at that and rebrand it to whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it says staking all throughout there and like staking rewards and stuff. So, yes. But so you think based on just what we've seen so far, you reckon people are going to just do it and they do not expect anything in return?
Well, people are doing it already, so it's not like it's a crazy expectation. It's already happening. Also, I think they get something in return. They get like a better functioning network that is not subject to attacks and stuff.
Yeah, yes, I would agree with that. And obviously, like businesses and things like that are probably going to be the ones that are mainly doing this, right?
Yeah, this is one of the things that we recommend. We recommend miner and exchanges to do it because, like, you don't need to have your keys online to do it, right? So an exchange can have its cold wallet in cold storage and use it as a proof to stake, for instance, and that way they can guarantee for themselves by participating in the consensus algorithm that it's harder to get double spend and stuff like that, which is better for the exchange. And the miner can make sure that their block are going to be accepted by the network, right? Because if you are miners and you don't stake and all your competitor miners stake, they can decide that no, they don't want your blocks anymore. And I agree on that, right? They have a way to coordinate this kind of stuff.
And so, in terms of like development, now that this is done, are you guys now working on the pre-consensus? Is that the next big thing?
Yeah.
It's the next big thing.
Yeah.
There are going to be various smaller things in between. One thing that we want to do is real-time targeting. So right now, one of the things that happens that is not so great on eCash is that we have switch miners that mine a lot of block, and then the difficulty goes higher, and then mining gets slower, and so on, right? And people in the BCH era, they have tried to fix that with difficulty adjustment, and you can make better difficulty adjustment algorithm, sure, but inherently, you're fighting a losing battle by attacking it with the difficulty adjustment algorithm. So one thing that you can do is real-time targeting. So real-time targeting is like if in real time you see too much block incoming, effectively you're gonna make it harder to mine a block. Now, the problem is that it uses real time, and maybe that's not obvious to many people, but when you're in the distributed network, it's not like the block have been found at a certain time. It's like you receive the block at a point in time, and another node receives the block at another point in time, and so on, right? Like the block takes some time to propagate over the network, and nobody agrees on the specific time at which the block arrived. Even it doesn't vary by 5 hours or by days or whatever, right? But it varies by a few seconds in normal conditions. So you cannot really do real-time targeting in those conditions, right? Because nobody's going to agree on the result. But it turns out that we have another consensus algorithm that can reach agreement on those kind of questions. Apologies. So you can leverage that to do real-time targeting on blocks. And so if someone turbo mines blocks and find a lot of blocks in a very short amount of time, well, then you can start rejecting those.
Okay. And
which means it doesn't get slow on the other side, right? Because then the difficulty doesn't shoot up, and then block don't get slow after that. So we should get like much more regular blocks.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing we are looking at. But the next big thing is definitely the pre-consensus.
Yeah. And so, yeah, obviously this new difficulty adjustment algorithm, that's going to help with the Avalanche thing as well, because, people can expect more consistent block times, like aiming at that 10-minute mark, and, you just know what to expect in that regard.
So it's not going to be exactly 10 minutes, right? Because there is there is still gonna be variance in the time it takes to find a block. But right now we have variance that is natural due to the process of mining, and we have variance due to the fact that people switch hash rate on and off the chain. Right? So the first one we cannot really eliminate. The second one we can eliminate.
Yeah, okay.
So we're gonna get a variance in block time that's similar to what BTC has. Right now we have worse variance than BTC in the block time, and BCH and other minority chain also has it worse.
Do you think that as a result of implementing a new algorithm there, will that keep miners away from eCash, or do you think it'll just make them want to come and stay?
I think it's good for the steady miners, and it's not so good for the switch miners, right? So, and it's been, it's been a conundrum for a very long time, and it was also in the BCH days. You have a problem, right? Because you have miners that actually support the chain and mining consistently, and you have miners that switch mine. And the miner that switch mine, they make more money than the miner that mine consistently. And so you're in a position where you have some people that support your chain, and you have some people that are opportunistic, and you penalize the people that support your chain to the profit of people that are opportunistic. So that's not so good, right? And ideally, you'd want to correct that, but there was no way to do that before Avalanche. Now we have a way to do that. So it's going to be bad for the people that are more opportunistic, the miners that are more opportunistic, and it's going to be good for the ones that are, more long-term supporter of the chain, which I think is a very good move. This is what you want to incentivize.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like reminding me of our last conversation, just like staking rewards. You want to incentivize the behavior that you want. So like miners basically just want to make money. That's essentially their motivation. So if they make more money steady mining, like right now they, like Amaury said, they make more money switch mining. So if they make more money steady mining, then they'll just probably start doing that, which is better for everyone.
And then with pre-consensus, so what sort of release time frame are we looking at for that? Is the work like pretty well underway at this stage?
Very, very hard to say, honestly.
Yeah. It's hard to predict. It requires a bit of, like, there's a bunch of groundwork that needs to be done first, because it essentially you have to kind of change a little bit how the mempool works and how the miners create blocks. So there's a bunch of just low level stuff underneath that you have to change to make it work. So you basically have to be able to take transactions, and if they're voted away, like said rejected by Avalanche, you have to be able to take them out, stuff like that. But yeah, conceptually it's all straightforward.
And for people that don't know, the pre-consensus, what it's aiming to do is basically make unconfirmed transactions like more secure, right? And basically,
yeah. So what we do for blocks. So what we do for blocks right now, we want to do for transaction as well. It's fundamentally the exact same problem, except it's more difficult on transaction. Why? Because there are more transactions, right? That's that's pretty much it. It's also cheaper to do transaction. It's not like someone can swarm you with thousands of blocks from one day to the next, because blocks are expensive to produce. Transactions are very cheap to produce, and there are much more of them. So you have more attack vectors that are possible. You have more, there are more aspects that you need to consider, but fundamentally, this is the same problem. And you want to be in a position where you've seen the transaction, you've seen that everybody has seen the transaction. Okay, you know that if there is a double spend on that transaction, this is a double spend. You need to get rid of it.
So basically the way it would work is, like, if a transaction is finalized by Avalanche, it doesn't guarantee that it's in the next block, because there's no way to guarantee that, but it does guarantee that there won't be a conflicting transaction in the next or in any block. So so basically, like, once the transaction is finalized, you know that it won't be double spent.
Yeah, it's it's a matter of time before it's in the block. You just don't know that it's going to be the next block. It can be 10 block later. but it will be in the block.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time.
So, is pre-consensus superior to what they're doing on Bitcoin Cash to try and improve zero confirmation transactions? They're doing something called double spend proofs, I believe. So how does this compare?
It's much better. It's much better because it makes double spend impossible. Like double spend proof, they don't prevent anything, right? It's like it's a proof that something bad happened. When it's a double spend, you can produce a proof that tell you, hey, you got screwed, you've been double spent, right?
Right. So it's actually happened, and then they just detect that after the fact, or what?
Yeah, it happens, and you can detect it and make a proof full of it, and I guess it's better than nothing, right? Because if you're being screwed, you would rather know it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So it's still an improvement, but it doesn't prevent you from being screwed at all, right? It just makes you aware when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, to steelman their case, like if you know within 10 seconds or something that you've been double spent, then depending on the scenario, you could say, "Hey, wait a sec, your payment just failed," or whatever to someone. But yeah, it's just basically like a more complicated and less reliable way of instead of just actually making the transactions be secure.
Okay. Yeah. So in our case, they don't need to be a double spend proof because they won't be double spend, right? So that's the right approach to it.
Yeah.
Certainly sounds better to me.
And the double spend proof, also, there are other scenarios. Like if you have I think it's called the minor collusion type of double spend, like it can't stop that. Like a miner could just produce a block 10 minutes later that has a double spend in it. And then your double spend proof basically didn't do anything to help you there. So.
Yeah, well, I think you guys really put it in a lot better context. And I don't know, I feel like they have been hyping that double spend proofs up too much. It doesn't really deliver as much security as I previously thought. Not that I
this kind of stuff is pretty much why we ended up leaving the BCH ecosystem, right? Because there's a lot of that going on. Like people are doing something, and like let me be clear, it's not the bad thing. Everything else being equal, you'd rather have double spend proof than not, right? So it's not like it's making things worse or anything, but at the same time, it's not really solving the problem, and it's being like drummed up like it's the second coming of Jesus. And well, the problem is that, the first time it works, but then people are like, okay, it didn't really change anything. And then you come up like 6 months later with the next greatest ID that is the third coming of Jesus now. And, like how many times can you do that before people are like, okay, like those guys are not actually solving my problems. They're just running out stuff to do PR.
The thing about Avalanche, and Amaury actually gave a good talk on this a few years ago. It's called, I think they had the word entropy in the title. It was about entropy. But basically, if you go back and look at like the root cause of the problem, like the nice thing about Avalanche is it solves that problem, but it also improves a whole bunch of other problems. And it sort of solves a whole bunch of things, which is that's kind of a good sign that you're on the right track of something that will make the whole system work better, versus just like putting a Band-Aid on one problem, but then, it doesn't necessarily completely fix it, and then it doesn't solve anything else at the same time.
Yeah, so all these developments that you guys are working on and have delivered as well, they're all like really tying in and helping make eCash a greater form of electronic cash and money. So what's going on in the field of like merchant adoption with eCash? I haven't been following what's going on there. Is there many like physical merchants or like online merchants that are accepting it as a payment method, to your knowledge?
I know there are a few, but it's definitely a big step back compared to the Bitcoin Cash days. But maybe like Antony, you want?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, but there's a few. There's like, I know blockchain poker is one, for example. You can play poker with eCash. And I think there's a few others.
Cool.
I mean, we're basically, yeah, like Amaury said, we're basically trying to build out a lot of infrastructure and improve all the tools. There's also pay button is being improved, which is going to be useful for merchants and people who want to take payments on websites and stuff. So yeah, we're basically just trying to build out the whole ecosystem of tools and stuff so that people can use that to build on top of. It's not, yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's trending in a good direction.
Yeah. Well, like obviously when there was the split with Bitcoin Cash and BTC, they had to start from square one. Well, you guys were involved too, right? So we all had to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
from square one again. And that's basically what's happening again here now. But, it looks like after a few years, there's been a fair bit of adoption and things like that recovered. And obviously, I think with some of the things that you guys have implemented, like the Avalanche stuff, that is going to make it like very attractive, and also post-consensus as well with people who want to accept cryptocurrency as a payment method. So yeah, I think that's probably all things still to come. And as I think
Yeah,
you've
I think
mentioned
so.
before, you've said in the past that like we need to make all these changes to the protocol and things like that now, before it actually becomes heavily adopted, because then it makes pushing out those upgrades and things easier, and you don't have people dealing with like downtime or other problems with services and things like that.
So yeah, so I mean, right now we are in a bit of a tough spot on that front because we are big enough so that breaking stuff is costly, but we're also not big enough so that we can twist the arm of like changes or whatnot to do the changes that are required. So we're a bit in the twilight zone where it's not so good for upgrades, unfortunately. But this is the reality of where we are. So some of those changes are going to be maybe difficult to make right now. But some of them they don't require any specific upgrade. Like anything that have to do with Avalanche, for instance, doesn't require anyone to upgrade anything, right? The What happens if you don't run an Avalanche enabled version of the node, you get the exact same thing as everybody else had before Avalanche activated, right? You still get the blocks, get the transaction, you can wait a few confirmation. Everything is just the same at this point.
So I wanted to ask a number of questions from the audience before we wrap things up, because we're like 45 minutes in now.
Yeah.
So some guy is asking here about the miners on eCash. Are you like in communication with them, and like I guess are they allies of eCash, the ones that are mining eCash blocks?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of miners, and we have some contacts with the miners, so we're able to make sure they upgrade when they need to and help them out, get them going with Avalanche and stuff like that. So I think they're pretty. I mean, I think most of them are also switch miners, which isn't ideal, but the ones that we're in contact with are seem to be good at doing the upgrades and making sure that everything's working properly.
Okay, well that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Looking further down the list here, John Binky says that eCash is a good brand, so why don't you rebrand wallets as well? CashTab could just be called the XEC web wallet, and Electrum ABC could just be called the eCash main wallet. It could be confusing to noobs.
Yeah, so noobs should not be running Bitcoin ABC. I'm not too worried about this one, but CashTab should probably be like wallet.e.cash or something like that going forward. I agree with that.
How is that project going? Because I remember seeing it back in like the very early stages, and it was like interesting because I think the design and everything like that in the implementation was a bit different to other things that I had experience with at the time.
I think a lot of people are using Cash Tab nowadays to use eCash. It's probably, I don't know, like personally, I use mostly Electrum. But it seems like I'm the minority now. It seems like most people are using Cash Tab these days.
Yeah. It's just got like a better user experience and interface, or what?
Oh yeah. Like no doubt, the Electrum interface is not so good, but it's the one I'm used to, so this is why I use it. But if I was to start from scratch, I would probably use Cash Tab.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an easy to use wallet. You can use it on your phone. It's like it's easy to just send and receive money.
So
and there's also
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, it's also basically, it's kind of a reference implementation too. So it's in our repository, and it has, all the bits and pieces that go together to make Cash Tab are meant to be usable or reusable by other people who want to build other stuff with eCash. And one thing that's happening right now also, that's related kind of, I guess, is it's starting to use the chronic indexer, which Tobias is working on within the node. So that will also basically add, the goal there is to have an indexer integrated directly in the node, which is another thing that just makes it easier to build stuff on top of eCash. So
Yeah.
it's all coming together pretty well. It's all basically like low-level infrastructure stuff, but the idea is to like make it something that is, that can have lots of stuff growing on top of it.
That's what you want. That's like basically the Ethereum model. One guy here is asking, where's Vin Armani's talk from the conference? I don't know. I haven't seen that. Isn't he involved in eCash? Because I remember a few months ago I saw him say like, "Oh, I'm quitting everything BCH and I'm doing everything on eCash now." So, do you know what's going on with him?
Yeah, he's not so involved in the protocol and stuff like that, but he has various businesses that are related to Bitcoin, and is using eCash these days for them. He's also someone to value the opinion of, and many people in the community do as well, I think. So, worth listening to. His talk at the eCash conference, I don't quite know. We should ask Tobias to know, but it was a great talk. So, when we have the link, we should share it, and
as far as
it's gonna interest people. That's the only talk I saw about Web3 that is not complete horseshit. Let's say it that way. That is actually good. It's not just not horseshit, it's actually good. So well worth watching.
Yeah, I think Tobias was planning to put them online at some point, but I guess that hasn't happened yet. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, he's in the chat, so maybe someone will give an answer for him, or he will give.
Well, Tobias, if you're in the chat, what are you doing? Quit the chat. Go do the videos.
Yeah, man. Well, also as well, I can say that I did some of Vin Armani's or Cyprian's courses, and like they're pretty insightful. So I think it's well worth doing, even though like I already knew a lot of the information. Like he puts a good spin on things, and it's worth it in my opinion. So Chris Troutner is here too. He says, since Avalanche expects nodes to be well connected, is that a possible attack vector? A state actor slow down network traffic?
Well, definitively, if you slow down network traffic, Avalanche is not going to work as well, but it's not going to work as well for the nodes for which the network traffic is being slowed down, right? Those nodes are not going to suffer too much. They're going to suffer a little, but not too much. Because if some nodes become, way too slow, they're going to start not really counting in the result of the outcome of, the protocol. So there is that. I think there is a lot, probably like a state actor that control ISPs and stuff like that can do against a specific node, but not in general against the protocol as a whole. And plus from a given proof that you own some coin, you can start several nodes that are using the same proof in the network, right? So if you want to make sure that it doesn't happen to you, you can run several servers in different geographic location, and you're going to be good.
He also adds, how does the eCash implementation compare to AVAX in those attack vectors?
I mean, hard to say. I've not pen tested the AVAX implementation, so very difficult to say. Though there is one thing that is notable. There is a big notable difference, is because we use Avalanche just as a complement to Nakamoto consensus rather than, in and of itself. That means that every time there are new blocks, we fall back on consensus. So let me take an extreme example. But let's say next week, Australia, there is a bot that cut the cables that connected to the internet or whatever, right? So there is no Internet Australia and there is the rest of the world, right? Obviously, the people that are internet in Australia where the cable are cut, they are going to find themselves out of consensus with the rest of the world, right? And the Avalanche node that are in there, they're going to talk to each other and come to some consensus without being able to pull the node outside of that. They're just going to assume that all those other nodes, they went offline and they don't exist anymore and we don't need to pull them anymore, right? The problem with that is that someone is going to reconnect those cables at some point in the future. And when that happens, you have two parts of the network that are not in consensus with each other. And in the case of AVAX, for instance, there is no way that this is going to reconciliate in any kind of way, right? In the case of eCash, what's going to happen is that, well, first, they're not going to be in consensus and they're going to disagree. But then as soon as a new block is found, they're going to run the Avalanche protocol on that new block once more. And now there are plenty of nodes that were offline that are back online from the perspective of the Australian nodes. And they're going to participate now, and this new block is going to be accepted, and all the Australian nodes are going to fall back into consensus, like in the 10 minutes or so that it takes to mine the block. So that's a great benefit compared to using just Avalanche by itself. And it's that you're resilient to any kind of network, like massive network problem.
Yeah, that actually, something kind of related actually happened to AVAX, I think, where they had some kind of bug, like it was an inflation bug or something. And basically there's no way to go back and change that. Like you can't, once they've agreed to something, you can't say like, oh, now we're going to go back and fix that thing that was agreed to that turns out to be wrong. The other big difference is, well, there's one thing, like Amaury mentioned, that in eCash's Avalanche, you can run multiple nodes per proof. Whereas I think in AVAX, you can just run they don't have that concept. Like each staker basically runs a node. There's no way to delegate that to run like a farm of multiple nodes geographically distributed or whatever. I'm not an expert on AVAX, but that's my understanding. And the other thing is that another nice thing that Nakamoto consensus gives you is when you turn on your node, like when you turn on your computer and you're just booting it up and bootstrapping into it, you can use the blockchain to say, okay, what coins are valid? Where's the longest chain? What's the good chain tip? And use that as your starting point for Avalanche. Whereas if you only have Avalanche, it's like a self-referential problem. Like if you don't know what the valid state is, there's no way to know, who to ask and how to connect to the network. So they basically have to hard code in a bunch of nodes that will give you the current state. And then from there on, it's trustless. But to get going in the first place, you need to trust something. So.
Yeah, that scenario that you mentioned, Amaury, with all the internet going off in one particular region, I reckon that something like that is very likely to happen in the near future with all this war and things going on. So, we may see that in practice very soon.
I hope not, but yeah. Probability is higher than it's ever been, I think.
Yes. One question that I had that I wanted to throw in here is I I remember leading up to the Bitcoin Cash split, you guys were saying that you're going to do a global network council on eCash. So is that a thing now, 2 years later? What's going on with that?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's just a group of people who have, who basically vote on proposals that people send in. So it's happening. There's a website for gnc.e.cash.
Okay.
People can check it out.
Yeah. So that being said, I think there should be some kind of some kind of meeting like it was planned originally, but in between the crazy fork and the attacks, and then there was COVID and everything that's happening in the world, it's just like it's we've not getting around to, we have not gotten around to do it, but it's probably something that should happen at some point. It's probably also something like we need to make sure that this instance is like fairly independent from us. The goal is not that we run it.
So if you guys do, is there going to be like a second eCash conference? And that might be a good place to do it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the goal for the
I don't know.
GNC is that it's basically its own organization that just does its own thing, and decides, how to manage itself and all that kind of stuff. So that's
we're gonna have to bootstrap
what we're
it
aiming
though.
for.
We're gonna have to bootstrap it. So the first few meetings and stuff like that, we're gonna have to organize it and make it happen, because it's not gonna happen by itself. But ideally, we don't want to be the one running it.
Yeah. Well, I think is this the reason why it hasn't really happened? Is because as well the group of people that are involved in things in eCash now is a lot smaller than it would have been with Bitcoin Cash, and so it doesn't really at this point need a reason to exist, or what?
I think it has its reason to exist, but we just had so much thing to do all at the same time that the team is not so big, right? That's the reality of it, and there is a lot to do all at the same time. So that we are running a lighter version of it from what I would like. Let's put it that way. So we've done what is necessary to get it going, but not really what's necessary to develop it into like a full-fledged instance of something that can have its own life, and we really need to get to that point.
Very good.
I think like one of the to dig back into it, because why am I saying that? Because I think this is an important instance, so that what has happened in BCH doesn't happen again, right? Like there need to be a place where the discussion happen with real people who have real stake in the system, can have those discussion, and that also don't splash over to the development, so that you don't make the engineering decision politicals. Because there is nothing worse than political engineering decisions. Everybody suffer from that, even though it doesn't look like it at first, especially for people that may not be very technical. But when the whole politics of the system splash into the engineering decisions that are being made, it's really bad.
One thing that I noticed, when there was this whole drama about back in Bitcoin Cash, when people were like opposing what ABC wanted to do, all those people, like many of them, I would say probably a majority of them, seem to be like no longer even involved. So I was like, I was really noticing this recently, and I was saying like, why did they come and create all these problems, and it negatively impacted the price of the coin and things like that, and now they're just
this is what I was saying at the time. Well, it's not too surprising, because if you created the picture that some people are a bad guy, this is a very good way to get, some grant training and some credit and whatever by opposing the bad guy. And especially if the bad guy is not actually bad, you don't take any serious risk doing so. And so that's the perfect plan. That's like, if you are interested by bolstering your ego, that's the perfect plan. But then when the bad guy, quote unquote, is gone, what remains for you to do is work. And that's no fun, right? And so you do it for a while because you pretended that this is what you wanted to do. All along, it was not an ego trip, it was work for something you were very interested in. And you do that for a few months and you get the fuck out. And this is what happened for most of those people.
Yeah, it was like they took a big dump in the nest, and then they kicked some people out, and then they took off themselves. So that's basically what it looks like at this point. And
Well, because the people that they kicked out were the people that were building the nest to begin with, right? So if you are not too dumb, you look at that and it's like, oh, there is nobody that maintained that anymore. It's supposed to be me now, but I'm not so competent that I don't want to work. So I know it's gonna be bad.
yeah, well, it just from this point in time in the future, it looks like that was just all a big commotion over nothing. And if they just didn't oppose what you guys wanted to do, like things would probably be a lot different. Bitcoin Cash probably be in a lot stronger position. It's got it would have Avalanche and things like that now too.
Yeah, for me, it's a big disappointment because we had to leave forward so much infrastructure and they didn't do anything with it, right? Like we left them with so much and they didn't do anything with it. It's so disappointing. They are, like consider like BCH was for the longest time considered one of the like top 4 legit coins that are everywhere, right? Like if you take like all the services that are very selective that list only like 4 or 5 coins, what do they list? Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, BCH, almost all of them, right? This is the top 4, maybe not top 4 in price, because like BTC and ETH are top 2 right now, but the other one, they are not in the top 4. But those are coins that have stand the test of time, that people, consider legit. They know it's not a scam, and it's not also the next flashy thing that may be gone in 2 months, right? And in that sense, they acquired a lot of credibility, and they get an advantageous position in the market because of it, and they were not even able to leverage that, which for me is a very, very big disappointment. It's like, okay, you try to raise your kid right, and then they end up doing crack and posting videos of themselves doing crack on the internet and losing their laptop and starting a war anyway. That's a huge disappointment for me.
Yeah.
So
I understand.
BCH is Hunter Biden, basically.
Maybe not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh well. Yeah, well, it's good to see that eCash has moved on from all that at least, and there seems to be a lot of upside. And
We're working on it. We have a good brand, we have good technology, a good roadmap. So I think our chances are pretty good, but there's lots of work to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we are missing right now is that we've not been there for very long. Well, even though the team have been there for very long, we went through the whole BCH days and everything. We were running BCH for years, but a lot of people, they don't know that, right? So from their perspective, eCash is like this new coming coin that they don't know about, that don't have a big track record behind it and stuff like that. So it's gonna take some time, for us being around and the thing to keep going, for people to consider that, a good project, and you cannot like. It takes time. You cannot cheat that.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things also that's nice about getting this Avalanche implementation out the door is now it's like, it just adds more credibility where we're like, okay, we're saying we're doing something. We actually delivered something and we're going to keep delivering stuff. So hopefully people can.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know. No, that it's obviously very good. When I say I don't know, is like I don't know how people see it, because even though this is how I see it, and clearly this is how you see it, and many of the people in the eCash ecosystem see it that way. The crypto space doesn't seem to give a shit at all, to be honest, about that, and it's nothing specific to eCash, right? Like take the Ethereum merge. For better or worse, it was a technical achievement that was, like pretty impressive, right? And the price of Ethereum crashed after that, right? So that was an opportunity. Like Ethereum, since the beginning, since the earlier day, they say we are moving to proof of stake. You can think it's good, you can think it's bad. It's not the point, right? The point is that they're saying here is what Ethereum is. It's proof of work for some time, and then it's going to move to proof of stake. And there is, the general idea of it's going to go and yada, 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 right? So when they do that, they prove that they can deliver on the promise that they've made, and they are like an actual serious project and not some people just moving hair around of themselves, right? To me, this is very valuable. To me, the fact that they done that, regardless of what I think of the technology, to me makes ETH more valuable, subjectively, right? But clearly the market disagrees.
Yeah, I think it's just the classic buying the rumor, sell the news strategy that's applying for that. So
sure,
afterwards...
and and fine, but that means that people don't really care about the technology or whatever, except to the extent that they know a release date and they can trade based
they
on
want to
that
make
and
money.
not based on what the technology is at all. Like Ethereum could have announced any random upgrade that do any random thing, and you would have seen the same pattern. It doesn't really matter what the upgrade is about, if it's good or bad. Nobody knows, nobody cares.
I'll get you guys to answer one or two more questions, and then I think we'll wrap things up here because it's over an hour now.
Sure.
Someone wanted to know how many devs does Bitcoin ABC have actively working on the eCash protocol at the moment? And then in addition to that, if eCash could utilize one or two devs from BCH or somewhere else from outside of eCash, who would that person or persons be?
I don't know, I'll have to think about that. I mean, we can always use more devs. We're always kind of on the horizon, but yeah, we have a budget and stuff, so we have to be selective, and we want, really top-notch people. There's basically around about 6.5 devs right now, in total, working across the node and cache tab. So but yeah, we can over time we're hoping to like gradually expand. It also depends. I mean, that's the thing about our funding is it's dependent on the market. So we have to, manage the inflows and so on. You're muted, Amaury.
Right now is a bear market, so you need to be a bit careful about how much you want to be growing. When the bull market returns, we can probably be a bit more enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah, bear market's just about survival, right? And then
bear market, well, it's not just survival, but yeah, a lot of it is survival. You need to make sure that you outlast them.
I mean, I think we're still moving forward too. So yeah, you kind of maybe can't expand wildly in a bear market.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oh well, that's at least if you guys are pushing forward on things, that's all that really matters, eh?
I mean, it's sustainable. Like that's the main thing. But like you're talking about Bitcoin Cash earlier, like that was the main ongoing issue. Is like we didn't have any predictable, sustainable resources. So now at least we know. I mean, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but at least we know that we have like a sustainable way to pay developers.
This is good.
So
All
that's
right.
good.
Well, unless you guys have any closing statements, we will wrap things up. Anyone?
Not really. Just thanks for having us on. I think I'm happy that Avalanche is deployed on mainnet and things are going well and the future's bright. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us on too. Like, pretty much like Antony says, I'm glad that, we achieved a big milestone. That makes me very confident that we're in good position for the next bull market. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, and like I was looking recently, there's like some flippening website or something, and it seems that the eCash price is
Cashioning.
like, yeah, it seems that it's keeping up pretty well against BCH. It's like I think it must be at least 50% of the value. So I think that's pretty good, considering that.
I think it's below 50%, but yeah, not so much below.
Yeah.
And yeah, considering we left all the infrastructure behind and that to rebuild everything from scratch, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, like if just also keep in mind, like after the split happened, we were down to around 3 or 4% of BCH for a long time.
Yes, so some
So
gains have been
that was
made.
So anyone who dumped all their BCH for eCash in that time has done well. But yeah, well, things were looking not so great at that time also. But yeah, now we're hovering up, somewhere in the 30s or 40s. So yeah.
Awesome.
Cashioning.com if people want to check that out.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, yeah, thanks for joining me, taking the time. And yeah, it was good to have you guys on. So maybe something we can do again in the future when you guys are pumping out some more updates or something like that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hayden.
All right, we'll end it there. So subscribe to the channel and like this video and share it.
Smash that like button.
Yeah, we want to get the word out there about Avalanche and things. I still have one wallet that has all my eCash on it that is like untouched since the split. So I've got a good stash there, as I promised.
Feed the algorithm.
I'm not selling it. I'm not selling it. So yeah.
The algorithm is our overload. You need to feed it.
Yeah.
The algorithm likes comments and likes and subscription.
Exactly.
Don't forget the bell. The bell too.
And the bell. And
I don't even mention half that stuff most of the time because I think it's just like ingrained in people's minds now from watching too much YouTube. But
yeah, but I guess if they repeat it, it must work because people, they don't think about it. They're like, I'm not gonna press the bell. And
oh well, guys, you heard
fine.
it here, so...
You don't have to, but our algorithm overlords, they have decided for us that it was necessary.
Yes. All right, Google, please Google. All right, guys, let's end it now. Stream is over.